Welcome back to the third installment on our journey with the TBS Tron 3D's linear rails on the Neptune 4 Plus. I'm Ed, and this is my Tech Talk. Today's Z-axis upgrade requires a bit more prep work. Even before we shut down the printer, we need to 3D print a couple alignment guides. These guides will be invaluable in ensuring precision throughout the process. You can find the link to download them in the description below. Now, let's gather our supplies. We'll need the Allen keys provided with the printer, some light-duty tape, edge cutters, needle nose pliers, an 8mm socket, a 7mm wrench, a measuring device, and if available, a machinist square. Also, we'll cut up some foam from the kit into squares to support the lead screws later on. With the guides printed and the printer powered down, it's time to dive in. Let's start by removing any external components like the auxiliary fan, main cable, runout sensor, spool holder, and braces. Be mindful of any T-nuts left behind from the spool holder. Either remove them or secure them with tape. And keep in mind, keeping the parts organized now will make reassembly easier when it comes time to it. Now we want to loosen the X-axis belt and detach it from the tool head. Then remove the tool head completely from the X-axis gantry. Now let's grab those foam squares we cut earlier and put them between the frame and lead screws. And then we'll tape them so they hold nicely against the frame. But remember, we do not want to bend these. Otherwise, say goodbye to good prints. Before we start removing the top brackets, we need to cut this small zip tie at the top. Then we can start removing the bolts that hold the top brackets. Once removed, we can disconnect the LED wire and move the runout sensor wire out of the way and then remove the top frame completely. Next, we want to untighten the set screws that hold the Z-axis belt in place, and then once done, we can remove it. With everything out of the way, we can disconnect the Z-axis motor and start removing the lead screw nuts. And once we have the lead screw nuts off, we can lift the X gantry off the lead screws and set it down closely as we will be working on it next. Now that we have the X gantry in front of us, we want to remove the linear rail we installed in the first part of this series. And then next, start disassembling the end caps that house the belt hardware, and then remove the belt completely. Following that, we can remove the last two bolts that hold the POM wheel assemblies to the X gantry. And once removed, start saying goodbye to the last of the POM wheels on this machine as we finally start removing them. Next, we can set aside one of each part from TBS Tron 3D's Z-axis kit, 6 of the M5x8 bolts, 4 of the M3x6 bolts, and 2 of the copper standoffs for each side. Now that we have all of our new parts, we want to grab the old T-shaped bracket and look for the stamped T on it, and then insert one of the M5x8 bolts following a copper standoff on the opposite side. Repeat this step one more time on the other side. Next, grab the largest bracket and another 2 M5x8 bolts and align the bracket like so and secure the bolts to the standoffs as well. Now we want to grab the linear rail bracket and attach it with the last 2 M5x8 bolts and make sure the ears are pointing towards the center for correct orientation. Then grab 2 of the M3x6 bolts and secure them to the linear rail bracket as well. Lastly, grab the lead screw bracket and the last 2 M3x6 bolts and secure it to the rest of the bracket like so. With all the bolts in place, go around the bracket to ensure all of them are tight and use the 7mm wrench to hold the stand off. Now we can start assembling the left gantry bracket, as it's very similar to the right gantry bracket and uses the same amount of bolts and the same new brackets. With both brackets put together, we can finally start the reassembly process. Let's grab the X-axis gantry and line it up with the new brackets. Grab the 2 bolts we removed before and reinstall the brackets, making sure they are in the correct orientation and they are straight. Next, we want to reinstall the X-axis end caps and belts. Then we can grab our X-axis linear rail bracket and reinstall it. While we're here, we want to double check that both brackets are still straight. With all that squared, we want to take our measuring device and ensure the lead screw guides are the same distance away from the top of the frame. And then we can slide on the X-axis gantry. At this point, we will grab one set of the 3D printed guides and slide them behind the brackets to help them stay straight. Once in place, we can grab the old lead screw nuts and install all 4 of them back in the guides. Like I've said before, you probably want to clean and grease everything up beforehand to be on the safe side and ahead on maintenance. Now we can start loosely installing 12 of the T-nuts and 12 of the M3x8 bolts to each of the linear rails. Start by evenly spacing them until you get to the end, and then I'll add extras to the top and bottom. Once we have all of our T-nuts loosely installed, we can take the bracket we printed earlier and snap them so it's flush with the bed and frame. Then, grab our rails and slide them into place. You'll notice the 3D printed guides has a spot so the rails slide into to ensure it is at the correct position. During this process, make sure you do not let the carriage fall off the rail. Next, we want to temporarily install the top frame with its 4 original bolts. Once installed, we can grab the smaller guide we printed earlier and snap it on to one of the rails and start to lightly secure the bolts. We will fully tighten these later. Then, around the back, we want to remove the X gantry guides we put behind the brackets, then take 8 of the M3x6 and line the carriages up with the brackets and install the M3x6 bolts into the brackets. Once the carriages are fully secured, we then can go back and fully secure all of the T-nuts on the linear rails. Now we want to remove the top frame again. Then we want to just set the Z-axis belt back in its original spot, but we aren't going to fully secure it just yet. Back to the top of the frame, we want to slide the filament sensor wire back into its original spot. Then we want to take the top brackets and reinstall both of them. Once both are installed, take a zip tie and secure both LED and runout sensor wires back to that same hole. Next, we can grab that last little 3D printed piece and place it above the Z-axis belts and use it as a guide to make sure we set the belt placement correctly. Next, we want to reinstall the rear support braces. And after that is complete, take a machinist square and go over the frame to make sure that everything is still square. Once we are satisfied that the machine is still square, then we can grab our tool head and reinstall it back to the X gantry, then reattach the X-axis belt to the tool head. Then go ahead and reattach the spool holder, runout sensor, auxiliary fan, X-axis cable, and the main cable. Now we can connect the screen, load our filament back up, and plug the power back in. With everything good to go, we are nearly done with this series. All that is left is the front braces, then we can do some final results. So, till then, stay tuned, we'll catch you on the next one.